Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and today I have the great pleasure of having my daughter, Elizabeth Hines, back with me, this time as co-host. She recently released a book that she edited. It's fabulous. It's called Aftermath, Life in Post-Roe America. And I'm not just saying that because I'm her mother.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for the plug. Thanks for having me. And today we are discussing mental health in youth and young adults and the power of creating safe places. And here to discuss this with us today are Dr. Shakira Haywood Stewart, a licensed psychologist, and Joshua Livingston, a visiting assistant professor at Bard College, a New York State licensed master barber, and co-owner of Friend of a Barber. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. So Josh, I want to start with you. I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit. You know, we're talking about mental health today, and what I'd love to understand is how the two pieces of your work as a master barber and your academic pursuits come together. Tell us about the confluence of those two things.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's important for me to say that I try to pursue them simultaneously. I came from a work that was rooted in youth development through social work. I had an MSW background prior to doing any of this work and working nonprofit in Boston, where I got my degree, in Missouri, where I'm originally from, and then also in New York. And in doing that work, I think it's safe to say that I felt something was missing. I don't think it was necessarily a resource-driven entity that was missing, but more so a lack of empathy that was happening, right? So those resources that were coming from spaces where folks would fund programming that was designed and developed for young people, and particularly in my case, young people of color, but not necessarily by young people, if that makes any sense. And so I thought to myself, well, where's a space that I resonated with as a young person? And where was a space that I could point to? I got choice. And that's not something that kids always get. It's choice to make a decision for themselves without being overly influenced by an adult, and as a barbershop. So in thinking on that, I decided to do barbering as a profession, but also removing myself from the nonprofit and go back to school to do a PhD and get more of a 50-foot view of what policy looks like and sort of the ways in which we're approaching this work from a theoretical perspective. So the work came together simultaneously. It grew simultaneously. I got the license, I apprenticed, I started cutting hair at the lowest rung, and also started working and taking class here at CUNY. And
CUNY, did I hear the word CUNY?
You heard CUNY, yes. Shout out Silverman School of Social Work in the Graduate Center, yes.
Right, so Joshua's one of ours, he's one of us, right?
That's right.
We're going to claim credit for that.
That's fine, no, you can, no, I'm claiming y'all too.
And the barbering, we're doing the full thing.
You can take it all. It was important because, in mentioning that, what attracted me to the Graduate Center's program in the first place was that I had the ability to be able to sort of structure my PhD the way I wanted to. And that's not always common in PhD programs, and I'm sure you could attest to that too, right? It's usually when you go in, it's what's the research agenda for the institution? There's typically a few, and then you plug yourself in with a professor or a faculty member that's doing that work, and you move forward. Well, with this, it was like, what do you want to do? And we'll support you in the way you need to be supported. So I thought that was more fitting because the work that I wanted to do was, I think, rather innovative in terms of becoming a barber and doing a PhD and doing it together and letting that evolve over time. And I needed a framework for that to work. So
yeah, and we will say, that you're something of a designer barber, one of those. You can't just call Joshua up and say, come cut my hair. So. But we're going to get in line we decided that 9-year-old Sam, her son, my grandson, needs an appointment because he's growing.
I said, I got
head,
There's choice though, right?
It's choice.
It is.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. Definitely
come to the work with choice.
Shakira, thank you for being here too. We were talking earlier in the green room about your clientele, and you've got an interesting background as well because you were a basketball player.
Division I basketball player.
Division I, and now my daughter knows what that means, but
I mean, serious.
Not
real. 2 or 3, D1, there we go.
Serious, and you became a psychologist. So what was the connection between those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I played basketball, but also my father played basketball. So he is a Hall of Famer, Olympian, Spencer Haywood. And so because of that, I always grew up around sports and athletes and was really keen to his mental health, concerns as a young child. Probably shouldn't have been, but our relationship has really thrived and grown because he was so open about his emotional experiences and the things he's dealt with in the past. And so I kind of grew up, really curious about my teammates and how they're doing on the court and off the court. And a lot of my role as sort of like team captain was very much like that emotional support, that just supportive person for people. And as I went through college, people are like, you should, do this. This seems like a good thing for you to do. And thankfully for my parents, they were super encouraging because I knew no one and they knew no one to point me to in terms of, if you want to be a therapist, if you want to be a psychologist, how do you do it? This is what you do. I had no idea. And so went in there blindly, and I'm glad I came out doing what I'm doing now. So.
We have you both here because you are experts on mental health and Black young people. And I know your clientele is a little bit older, but 18 to 40, you say, in that range. And Joshua, you're dealing with that same age group as well?
Yeah, I mean, it depends upon the setting, right? But mostly 17 in college, where I'm at Bard now teaching, and moving through, folks who are 40, 50, sometimes 60 years old. But I think that, the bulk of my work happens around 18 to 30, 35.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, I do want to say about the barber shop, though. We're kidding him, and saying we're getting in line, but it's being used by the medical profession to actually reach Black men.
That's right.
As to check their blood pressure, or sign them up to vote, to find them there. So that I think that it is a crucial piece of the mental health story that we're talking about. But and one of the statistics that I read is that Black men their survival rates for any kind of health, any kind of thing, mental or whatever, is like at the bottom.
Absolutely.
The rank, and we know this story so so well. So Shakira, do you have male clients as well who come to you and talk? So, without, of course, divulging, specific information, but what are they talking to you about?
I think so. I have one that is an athlete and another one non-athlete. A few actually, and another professional. And the common thread, I think, among them is the language around emotion, not necessarily even knowing the language around thoughts, feelings, behaviors. And so a lot of our beginning work is laying that foundation of what is this emotion? Why does this make you feel like this? How does this happen? And what does this make you feel like? And how can you express that? How can we have conflict resolution in a healthy way? And I think, particularly with my younger folks who are more like 18, early 20s, it's a lot of anger. And so it's really working with that anger. For me, I think, especially in my practice, that anger is the most powerful and useful emotion for us to work with, because that just, underneath that is everything. And so being able to touch that and work with that has been the most helpful in terms of their trajectory of health.
So a lot of you found that your clientele after the George Floyd murder, that a lot of people were looking for.
Absolutely. And they were specifically looking for a Black therapist. So some of them new to therapy and were like, I need to try therapy out. But also many were in therapy before, but wanted specifically to stop and say, you know what, I need someone who really understands me a little bit more. So that's something that's been happening a lot more.
And do you find that there's still a lot of stigma in the community about seeking out therapy?
I think it is decreasing, absolutely, because I don't think I would be booked and busy the way that I am if the stigma was still there. But I do think it's so interesting because I was talking to a doctor who works at Mount Sinai, and she frequently wants to send people that she comes my way, and they're younger adolescents, and she's so surprised that almost all of them, the older folks, older adults, are like, yes, sign me up. Where do I go? Who do I reach and get in contact with? But the younger folks are actually, which you would think that maybe Gen Z, Gen X, or Alpha, or wherever we're at, would be more curious and open to therapy, but they're actually still a little bit hesitant about it.
And Joshua, you find that as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, Shakira, you mentioned something I think that in terms of booking, right? Because we both work in clientele-based, businesses, and I think, or professions, and I think, speaking on the barbering side, and I guess it could also be said for the college side. It's traditional for young people, and particularly young Black men, to reach out to professors as mentors, right? I did, and that was really powerful for me. It was one of the first times I was able to have a Black man that I can look up to in a particular way to take me and introduce me to things that were, rooted in theory, but also sort of educating me and saying that, the places that you came from that weren't a part of this sort of academic background and these types of things are valid. I think the anger piece that you mentioned before was it really has really resonated with me personally. But I want to touch on this piece that you talked about being booked and what happened post George Floyd. So we actually opened up our shop. I think that happened in May of 2020. We opened our barbershop up in the end of June of 2020. And the uptick of Black men looking for me in particular and said that they researched it based on, sort of anything that's out there in the world that says that I have both of these skill sets simultaneously has been tremendous. And often we talk openly about going to therapy, our feelings, the anger. And I think I should stress here that the barbershop is a sort of supplement to this traditional form of therapy, right? Because people are choosing it, and they go there and they can, let themselves go a little bit more. And I don't think that it's a coincidence. I think that people are really mindful that, particularly Black folks, are mindful that being around each other, we humanize each other in a really unique way. And I think that's important to even muster up the courage to say, no, I need help in a deeper way. Right? So I hope that our shop serves as that for people of all races, but I hope it serves that particularly for Black people and young Black people. It's important to me.
Sure. Well, I had a rule in our family when I was raising my children, and I still believe I'm a believer in therapy. And I said, yes, you all need therapy.
We all need therapy.
Let me do the we. Yeah.
We all need therapy, but you can only go.
Gotta be
one
careful.
at
Careful to walk that line.
I know, but we have to go one at a time. So get in line. Yeah. Let's figure out who goes first. Who's in the most distress. And that's the way we handle it in our family. But also it's an economic thing as well, which is why we had to space out our whoever got to, as it's extravagant at that point, and still to this point, So it's an economic thing. How do you deal with that in terms of the barrier to help, just on a financial basis?
Yeah, I think for me that really resonates, especially because I'm in private practice. I don't accept insurance, and it's not because I don't want to accept insurance, but it's because the insurance companies are just not the best to work with, and they really devalue therapists and their worth. And so many therapists, especially in New York City, kind of go around that. And so for me, really working with my clients and their insurance, forcing them essentially, because it is a case by case. Obviously you have your insurance plan, but whoever is on the other line in terms of customer service could, maybe see, well, maybe this or maybe that, and really encouraging them and strengthening them to have those conversations with their insurance. Another resource that I often give folks who are like, I can't pay nothing, is the Loveland Foundation. So this is a foundation specifically for Black women that give out free therapy vouchers. And so if someone's like, I just need to get started on something, I send them there, and almost every person that I send that link to gets the therapy vouchers.
That's incredible.
So right now I have almost every person or not every person, but many people on my caseload have at least just used that as a way to be like, well, if they're going to give it to me, if someone is offering this is a great place for me to get started with and then continue on and know that I had some support in there. And I have a client now who we've been working on and off with each other for a few months now, almost a year, and she's gone entirely, seeing me and spacing it out and using those vouchers. So it's been very, very helpful for people to use. And then if all of those things don't work, just referring people to resources in the city.
Mm-hmm. So. That's great.
Well, during the pandemic, do you want to tell the story of friends of who were looking for therapists for children, and you could not find one. You know?
Yeah, there was, I mean, these are people who, knew that they couldn't find folks who were going to take insurance, so stood ready to pay, and still, I mean, but it's just a lack of space, time, therapists who are available to actually provide these services. I mean, so, we need more therapists, and we certainly need more Black therapists as well, because I know, there are lots of, schools, I think, that are actively in the process of looking for being able to hire more people of color who can provide services to their kids, because they want to talk to people who are from their community and who look like them. So, I think the work that both of you all are doing is just incredible. It's so important. Yeah. And the other question that I had was the other resources. I think we were talking a little earlier today about Black girls therapy, right?
Yes. So therapy for Black girls.
Therapy for Black girls.
So this.
I love that title, by the way.
And
Yeah,
it's just,
right.
It's like, what are you looking for? I'm looking for
Therapy for Black girls.
Self-explanatory. Yeah, that's good.
It's exactly what you need, and it truly is, because many of my clients, both men and women, have found me on this platform. So it's a directory of therapists who are Black, and you can, see where they're located, see what their specialty is, what are they, their degree and credentials, and you can reach out and find a therapist. So people are first like, I want to go to therapy. That's the biggest, hurrah moment, but it's also, okay, now where do I find one? And so this has been just a really great resource for people. There's Psychology Today, there's Zen Care, and you can use these websites and tailor down your actual search for Black, by ethnicity and things like that. But by far, Therapy for Black Girls has been the most helpful, and I've gotten a lot of clients through there.
Great.
I mean, I looked for my own therapist on there. So
Oh, really?
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I love that if a therapist has a therapist,
Oh, I don't trust
You don't want to
therapists who
go
don't
to a
have
therapist.
Oh,
who-
yeah,
I was
right.
going to say, that's, I don't know if I
What?
would either.
Can't trust a therapist who doesn't have a therapist.
A barber needs a barber, a
Right.
therapist needs a therapist.
barber needs a barber.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
Joshua, talk to us about placemaking. What's
Yeah,
that? all about?
absolutely. So I kind of carry that everywhere. I think that's the linchpin, right, between this cutting hair and the professor piece. But the work that I do on the academic side is developing space, developing place with young people of color. And the first time I did that, I'm going to bring CUNY back up again, shout out CUNY, I applied for a small grant that I needed to make a specific point that it was discretionary. And I think the reason why that point is important is because often when you apply for money to use for something or to build some entity, there's an outcomes orientation attached to it. And the outcome is typically not chosen by the recipient of the money. And in our case, I was trying to create something for Black folks, and the outcome needed to be designed and be for Black folks. So discretionary money that came from CUNY was like, let me jump on it. It's a small sum of money, but it was extremely powerful. And I was working on my dissertation. I was introduced to Bard College at the time by a young man that I mentored when I was working in nonprofit, and started working with the students that he was doing peer mentorship with. And he's grown his nonprofit into what's called Brothers at Bard, was this entity, and now it's Brothers at, which is a national organization. And that's fast forwarding to now, right? But I brought them together and said, let's build something that feels comfortable, feels like home, feels like you. And so we built a barbershop on campus. And that became a space that they could call home, and it became their place, right? And I'm using these two words separately because space is what you build and place is what you put in it when the people come inside of it. So this placemaking component is about designing things with a certain level of intention and designing them with the people who are using them, designing it from a point of empathy, being iterative about it. So it's not sort of a linear 1, 2, 3, but we move and flex as we need to, right? And so I think there's a lesson within that for them and also for me, right? It's a flexibility that needs to happen on the part of being a social designer, right? So it's sort of thinking about that there may be foundational tools that I can bring to the work, but I have to bring, my best self is going to bring flexibility to the work, right? Like,
Right.
I have to be open. I have to say this worked for these folks, but it might not work for these folks. I have to be mindful that things ebb and flow over time. right? So the people who built something might change and say we want to evolve it and turn it into something different. So at present, there's a few places on campus. There's the barbershop. We did a social enterprise cafe. So I focused on framing it social
So
enterprise.
barbershop, a cafe.
Barbershop, a cafe. There's a multicultural center that we built for young people of color in their affinity groups to use as a safe space. And then recently I taught a class through the American Studies Department where I teach on the origins of the Black Cookout. So the class was about Black folks coming together in like a traditional sense, barbecuing.
Barbecue.
But
barbecue
the
cookout,
history
that's
of
great.
that, the history of that and where it came from, our
Right.
ancestors and indigenous practices and those types of things. But we built a physical pit on campus made of stone,
That's
so
amazing.
it's impossible to move, right?
Yeah, that is just
but,
amazing.
But the power of putting that on a campus
Right.
where they're not in majority, right? Because it's a predominantly white campus, and to know that it was built by students who were doing it in the spirit of Black ancestors was like a solidifying moment.
Yes.
So it's now being used to cook traditional Pakistani meals. It'll be used in the fall to do a series of workshops around, cultural cooking and those types of things. So that element of placemaking is a more broader sense of it, right? So I'm trying to sort of begin it here in the pilot phase and then move it out to see how far it can stretch.
Right. That's amazing. I was just going to ask you, I mean, you started to talk about this, but what the impact that you see of this kind of work? Why, for people who would ask, why is it important? What would you say?
I think that it's again, going back to this sort of foundational piece about opening people up to their feelings and opening people up to being able to sort of go after things that they may need in their lives, whether it be therapy, whether it be a conversation with folks in their family about things that are happening with them. I mean, people are sort of locked up. And I think after the pandemic, I think it's fair to say that we all kind of realize that we need each other and we need some type of social connection. Zoom ain't gonna cut it all the time. And I think that work is important, right? We need to have physical space for people to go. I think from a broader sense, kind of where I see things going is I don't believe it can stop. It needs to stop at sort of, one particular institution or another. I think that other folks can adopt it. I would love to continue that work. That's what I'm trying to do. But also broaden it out to cities. I've been doing research down south where I found my own origin, and that was healing for me in having family from Mississippi. And I went back down there and was able to look at that and say, okay, maybe there's some placemaking opportunities that can happen in places here from a sort of small town or city perspective. So I see it as a broader piece because I'm using elements of it in the shop that I have in New York with my business partners, and it works. I've used it again in this broader sense of like campus-wide celebrations, and it's worked. So I'm hoping.
Right. Look, I would like I was trying to think of what would my space be, and I think it
Yeah.
would be recreating my mother's kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be mine.
Yes.
We only have a few more minutes, but I want to ask you, because having this distance between young people, children who need therapy, what would you be saying to the parents and to the kids now? All kinds of insane things happening. So what kind of advice do you give to the parents, especially dealing with their children?
Absolutely. I think I actually went to a continuing education on Friday about this
Right.
and talking about exactly how parents can actually support their kids during this time, especially with anxiety and depression, because those things have been elevated more than any year before. And so I think as parents, it's strengthening that communication unit, that connectedness. What you were talking about, like we're all talking about connectedness, togetherness, and that is really the way that we can heal, the way that we can feel empathy, that way that we can know that the other person is listening to us and things like that. And so with parents, my biggest advice is just to, get your own therapy if needed, but then also being able to be there and take time with your kid. Something that I heard, I'm a parent and I know Josh is too, but it's getting down. Someone said, get down with your kid. And it's not just talking to them and, you need to do this, but get on the floor with them, be with them, because then that way you're able to connect with them and hear more about what they're struggling with. And then that way the cohesiveness of the family unit would be a lot stronger.
Joshua, have any?
I mean, I
Good
think
advice.
that the particular, it was all great, and particularly the last point about being, getting down the floor with them. So I didn't take any classes on Friday formally. I took a class with my daughter last week because she's 7 years old and she's very bright, and I'm fortunate that she's really communicative with my wife and I, and she mentioned to me, I know we're talking about sort of problems, but she mentioned to me that she was happy, something that she was happy about. And she said, I'm happy where we live, and I'm happy about, she listed a few things. And we were on the floor, she was drawing. And in that moment, it made me think to myself, like, from a strengths perspective, right, I'm constantly trying to listen as a parent and do better about hearing her and the things that she's saying that she's struggling with. But I also should focus on the things that she's happy about too, because I can lean into those things and I can figure out how to deepen our connection with each other by sort of linking onto that and knowing that she can trust me as a father, and she trusts the family, and in opening herself up. So I have to agree with everything you said, and letting your kids kind of teach you. Right? You got to be a little. They got to be a little.
They're here to
a little more
teach
open
us.
to teach. Yes,
Right,
yes.
right. That is so lovely
Absolutely.
to concentrate on the good things as well as the not so good. Thank you both so much for being here and for what you're doing. You're extra. I mean, it's like, people are going to be saying, and her number was.
That's
and
right.
This number
How do I get
is.
there? Yeah.
Right. Find a Black mental health person. Right. Thank you both so much.
Oh, thank
Dr.
you.
Shakira Hayward Stewart, a licensed psychologist, and Joshua Livingston, a visiting assistant professor at Bard College, a master barber, and co-owner of Friend of a Barber. I'm going to see you online trying to get a haircut. And trying to get an appointment with Shakira.
Ready.
If you find yourself, though, we want to be serious, in need of help, don't be afraid to get help and speak to someone. We've heard about therapy for Black girls, and there are other resources like BEAM, Black Emotional and Mental Health, that offer things like peer support and, importantly, 24-hour hotlines. So that is it for us at this time. Thanks for you joining us, my co-host Elizabeth Hines, for being here. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America. We'll see you the next time.